Just days before Raspberry Pi Zero W was released, I ordered Orange Pi Zero. There are a couple of models available, and I must say before I forget, this one is 256 megabyte version. 512 megabyte version doesn't cost much more, but I thought I don't need that extra memory, so I chose this version. The system on chip on this device is H2+, which is almost the same as H3 that was on the Orange Pi PC. There's 26-pin GPIO header or place for it. It is compatible with older Raspberry Pis or 26 first pins on the newer Raspberry Pis. This has Ethernet jack and USB port and dedicated serial port pin header, so you don't have to use the GPIO header, which can be useful when using, for example, some kind of custom board that is blocking the access to the GPIO header pins. On the other edge of the board there is this pin header, which has two extra USB ports, microphone input, line output, composite video output, and also a infrared receiver's input pin. Right next to that header is built-in Wi-Fi chip. This Pi Zero comes with the antenna, but if you want to use your own antenna, you can remove this thanks to the standard connector on the board. This can be powered through the micro USB port, and that can be also used to connect this as a device to a computer, for example for serial over USB connection. And like usually, operating system will be installed on the micro SD card, but I think there's possibility of installing the operating system on USB drive and burning a bootloader on the SPI flash, but I'm not sure about that. These are so cheap that I also decided to get kit, which has the expansion board that adds two USB ports, AV output, microphone, and an infrared receiver. Like I showed before, this expansion port is connected to the pin header on the main port, which is just regular 0.1 inch pin header. And on the expansion port there is a female header, so you can pretty easily make your own expansion ports with different layouts, or you can even add some cables to this pin header if you want to wire those connections to, for example, front panel of the case you are using. But if you don't want to make custom case and you want something pre-made, you can get this kit which comes with the Orange Pi Zero, the expansion port, and also this plastic case which holds both of those ports. This is nice looking small black cube which has holes for the connectors and also a few holes for air ventilation. This can be opened by removing the bottom plate. Inside is a plastic bag which comes with some rubber pads and 6 screws. So if I want to put these ports in, the first one is the expansion port. There weren't any instructions, but it should be pretty easy to figure out which part goes where. So just align those holes with the connectors on the board, and the expansion port goes in like that. There are 2 holes on the PCB and the board can be screwed in using 2 of those screws that came in the back. And then comes the main board. It should be just as easy to figure out which way this goes in. There are holes on the case, and of course there's the pin header and the female header on the expansion board. Just put the Wi-Fi antenna somewhere where you can fit it, for example between the expansion port and the case. Then plugging the pin header of the main port to the female header on the expansion port. And you don't need to add any screws at this point. First you need to add the bottom plate, which can go in only in one way. It's not symmetrical as it may first seem to be, but once you figure out which way it goes in, you can add the 4 screws which will hold the bottom plate and the main board in the case. So that is the whole computer. Just add micro USB for power, any external peripherals you may need, and a network cable if you want to have wired connection. I think that is pretty neat looking device. Now that I have shown you the Orange Pi Zero, let's make a quick comparison between that and the Raspberry Pi Zero. They both have same amount of RAM if you choose the more expensive version of Orange Pi Zero. Raspberry Pi has single core processor while the Orange Pi Zero has quad core. The Raspberry Pi has mini HDMI output while the Orange Pi only has the composite video in the pin header. The Raspberry Pi has only one USB port and it can act as a host or device, but not both at the same time. Orange Pi has full-size USB port and a micro USB port, so it can be both at the same time. These both can be powered using micro USB or pins on the pin header. The Raspberry Pi Zero has camera connector, but the Orange Pi doesn't. The Orange Pi PC has 26-pin pin header, while the Raspberry Pi Zero has 40-pin pin header, so more GPIO pins. The Orange Pi Zero has built-in Wi-Fi like the Raspberry Pi Zero W, which I don't have, and they cost about the same. The Raspberry Pi Zero without the Wi-Fi costs about $5. With the Wi-Fi it costs $10, and the Orange Pi Zero costs about $10 on the AliExpress. So if we consider only the 512 MB version of Orange Pi Zero and the Wi-Fi version of the Raspberry Pi Zero, they are pretty much the same price and quite similar devices with some differences. If you prefer larger community and better support, go with the Raspberry Pi, but if you need the multi-core processor, more USB ports, then the Orange Pi Zero is also a good option. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the comment section. Which one do you prefer? Do you go with the Raspberry Pi every time, or do you like trying out these other options like the Orange Pi? Leave your thoughts on the comment section, like this video, and subscribe if you haven't already.